My name is Elena Torres. I'm 31 years old, and I live in Houston, Texas. 6 months ago, I sat at my mother-in-law's dining table while she looked me dead in the eye and said in Mandarin, "This worthless white girl doesn't deserve my son. She's too stupid to even give us a grandson." She smiled sweetly at me the entire time. My husband Marcus translated it as, "Mom says the chicken is delicious." I smiled back and said in perfect English, "Thank you so much. Everything is wonderful." What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I spoke fluent Mandarin. I had lived in Beijing for 3 years during college. I had studied the language intensively. I could understand every single venomous word that came out of their mouths. And for 2 years of marriage, I had listened to them insult me, mock me, plan against me, all while pretending I didn't understand a word. But that night at dinner, something else happened. Something that would change everything. While my mother-in-law was insulting me to my face, my husband's phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up with a message in Chinese characters. A message from someone named Lily Chun. A message that said, "Baby, I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Tell the white girl you're working late again. Before I tell you how I destroyed my husband's life, how I exposed every lie he'd ever told, how I took everything from him and his toxic family, I need you to do something for me. Go ahead and hit that like button right now. Subscribe to this channel if you're new here and turn on those notifications so you don't miss any of my stories. Drop a comment below and let me know where you're watching from and whether you speak more than one language. Trust me, you're going to want to stay until the very end of a story because what I discovered about my husband and what I did about it, it's worse and better than anything you could imagine. And the revenge I got? Oh, it was poetry. Let me take you back to the beginning. Back to when I thought I was living a cross-cultural love story instead of a nightmare. I met Marcus Chen 3 years ago at a medical conference in Austin. I'm a pharmaceutical sales rep, and he was there representing his family's import-export business. He was handsome, charming, spoke perfect English with just the slightest accent that I found attractive. He approached me at the hotel bar after the first day of sessions. "You look like you need a drink stronger than that," he said, gesturing to my wine. "Rough day of presentations?" I laughed. "Is it that obvious?" We talked for hours. He told me about growing up in Houston in a traditional Chinese family, about the pressure to take over the family business, about wanting to build something of his own. I told him about growing up in a small town in Iowa, about putting myself through college, about my dreams of climbing the corporate ladder. We had nothing in common on paper, but somehow it worked. We dated for 8 months before he proposed. It was romantic, thoughtful, everything I dreamed of. He took me to the Houston Arboretum, to this beautiful garden pavilion, got down on one knee, and asked me to be his wife. I said yes without hesitation. I was so in love, so completely, blindly, stupidly in love with this man. The problem started almost immediately after we got engaged. His family was not happy. His mother, Mei Chen, made it very clear from our first meeting that I was not what she had in mind for her only son. She wanted him to marry a nice Chinese girl from a good family. Someone who understood their culture, their traditions, their language. Someone who wasn't me. But Marcus insisted. He told them he loved me, that we were getting married whether they approved or not. Eventually, they agreed to accept me. Or so I thought. The wedding was a nightmare of cultural compromise. His mother wanted a traditional Chinese banquet. I wanted a church ceremony with my family. We ended up with both, which meant 2 ceremonies, 2 receptions, and double the stress. At the Chinese banquet, I sat at the head table smiling while his relatives spoke in rapid Mandarin around me. I caught fragments of conversations. I heard the words foreign devil and disrespectful and won't last a year. Marcus would occasionally translate something for me, always something innocuous. "They're complimenting your dress. They're asking about your family. They think you're very pretty." All lies. But I didn't say anything. I had a plan. You see, I had studied Mandarin in college. Not just a semester or 2, I had minored in it. I'd spent my junior year abroad in Beijing living with a host family, completely immersed in the language and culture. I was fluent. Completely, utterly fluent. I could read, write, speak, and understand Mandarin as well as any native speaker. But I never told Marcus. It had never come up during our courtship. He never asked if I spoke other languages, and I never volunteered the information. And when I met his family and realized they were going to speak freely in front of me, assuming I couldn't understand, I made a calculated decision. I would let them think I was ignorant. I would let them reveal their true selves. I would gather information. And I would wait. Those first few months of marriage were eye-opening. We lived in a condo in the museum district, close to Marcus's office. He worked long hours at the family business, which imported textiles and electronics from China. I continued my sales job, traveling occasionally for conferences and client meetings. On the surface, we were the perfect couple. Young, successful, happy. But every Sunday, we had dinner at his parents' house in Sugar Land. And every Sunday, I sat at that table and listened to them tear me apart in a language they thought I couldn't understand. My mother-in-law was the worst. Mei-Chin had the face of an angel and the tongue of a viper. She would smile at me sweetly while saying things in Mandarin like, "She's so plain. I don't understand what he sees in her." Or, "She can't even cook proper rice. How will she feed my grandchildren?" Or my personal favorite, "I give this marriage 2 years before she shows her true gold-digging nature." Marcus's father Daniel was quieter but no less cruel. He would make comments about my education, my career, my family's lack of wealth. "She's from farmer stock," he once said while passing me the dumplings. "Good for labor, not for breeding into our family." I smiled and thanked him for the food. Marcus's younger sister Jennifer was perhaps the most two-faced of all. She befriended me, took me shopping, invited me to lunch. And then she would go home and tell her mother everything I'd said, twisting my words, making me sound stupid or manipulative. I know this because I heard her do it. One Sunday, I excused myself to use the bathroom and I paused in the hallway. Jennifer was in the kitchen with their mother, and I heard her say in Mandarin, "Elena told me she thinks Mom's cooking is too authentic. She wishes you would make more American food." Can you believe her arrogance? I had said no such thing. In fact, I'd complimented May's cooking extensively. But Jennifer was building a case against me, painting me as the ungrateful foreign daughter-in-law. The worst part, the part that hurt the most, was Marcus. My husband would sit there at that table, listening to his family insult me, mock me, plan ways to push me out of their lives, and he said nothing. Nothing. He would translate their cruelty as compliments. He would pretend everything was fine. And I started to realize that he wasn't protecting me. He was protecting them. He was enabling their behavior. And slowly, horribly, I began to suspect he agreed with them. Before I continue, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. I love hearing from you. And if this story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. The turning point came 6 months into our marriage. Marcus and I were trying to start a family, or at least I thought we were. We'd stopped using protection, and I was tracking my cycles, doing everything right. But month after month, nothing happened. I suggested we both get checked out by doctors, just to make sure everything was working properly. Marcus got defensive. "There's nothing wrong with me," he snapped. "Maybe the problem is you." That hurt, but I made an appointment with my gynecologist anyway. After a full workup, my doctor gave me good news. I was perfectly healthy and fertile. There was no reason I shouldn't be able to conceive. "The issue might be with your husband," my doctor said gently. "Has he been tested?" I told her I'd talk to him about it. That Sunday at dinner, I brought it up. I waited until we were all sitting around the table, and I said, "My doctor confirmed I'm healthy and ready to start a family. Marcus, I think we should schedule an appointment for you too, just to rule anything out." The reaction was immediate and nuclear. Mei Chen's face turned red. She launched into a tirade in Mandarin, her voice rising with each word. "How dare you suggest my son is defective? There is nothing wrong with Chinese men. The problem is obviously you. You're too thin, too stressed, too American. You probably can't carry a child because you've ruined your body with your career." Marcus translated this as, "Mom thinks you should try to relax more. Stress can affect fertility." I looked at my husband. I looked at this man I had married, this man I had trusted, this man I had loved. And I saw clearly for the first time that he was never going to defend me. He was never going to stand up to his family. He was always going to put them first, even when they were wrong, even when they were cruel, even when they were destroying our marriage. "You're right," I said sweetly in English. "I should relax more. Thank you for the advice, May. She smiled, satisfied that she'd put me in my place. But something had shifted in me. I wasn't going to play the obedient daughter-in-law anymore. I was going to pay attention. I was going to watch and listen and gather evidence. Because I had a feeling that there was more going on than just family disapproval. I had a feeling my husband was hiding something big. I started paying closer attention to Marcus's schedule. He claimed he was working late at the office 3 or 4 nights a week. He said the business was expanding, that they were negotiating new contracts with suppliers in China, that he needed to be available during China's business hours, which meant late nights in Houston. It made sense. It was plausible. But something didn't feel right. One night when he said he was working late, I drove to his office. The building was dark. His car wasn't in the parking lot. I called him. "Hey, baby," I said, keeping my voice light. "I'm craving the Thai place you love. Want me to bring you dinner at the office?" There was a pause. A long pause. "That's so sweet, but I already ate. I'm buried in paperwork. I'll be home late. Don't wait up." He was lying. He wasn't at the office. So where was he? I started checking his phone whenever I had the chance. He was careful, but not careful enough. He'd leave it on the nightstand while he showered, or on the kitchen counter while he took out the trash. I'd grab it, quickly scan through his messages, and put it back before he noticed. Most of it was boring, work emails, texts to his parents, messages to old college friends. But there were always gaps, deleted conversations, missing time periods, and occasionally a message would come through from a contact saved as James Liu or Supply Manager Wang. Generic names that could have been anything. Then came the night that changed everything. We were at his parents' house for Sunday dinner. It was April. I remember because his mother had made spring rolls and was complaining in Mandarin about how the vegetables weren't as fresh as they were in China. I was sitting there, smiling politely, picking at my food. Marcus's phone was on the table face up. It buzzed. A message in Chinese characters appeared on the lock screen. The contact name was Lily Chen. The message read, "Baby, I can't wait to see you tomorrow. Tell the white girl you're working late again." My blood ran cold. I sat there, frozen, staring at that message. It was right there. Proof. Evidence. Confession. Everything I needed to know, displayed in bright letters on my husband's phone. Lily Chen. Baby. The white girl. Working late. He was cheating on me. He was having an affair. And whoever this Lily Chen was, she knew about me. She knew I existed. She called me the white girl with such casual contempt, such dismissiveness, like I was nothing, like I was an obstacle to be worked around. Marcus grabbed his phone quickly, glancing at the screen. His face didn't change. He didn't look guilty or panicked. He just smiled, typed a quick response, and put the phone face down on the table. "Work stuff," he said in English. His mother said something in Mandarin, and he responded in the same language. They laughed. I wanted to scream. I wanted to flip the table. I wanted to grab his phone and smash it against the wall. But I didn't. I smiled. I took a sip of my tea. I complimented May's spring rolls in perfect English. And I started planning my revenge. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay next to Marcus in our bed, listening to him snore, and I felt nothing but cold rage. This man I had married, had been lying to me. He'd been sneaking around with another woman. He'd been making a fool of me. And his family, his horrible, toxic family, had probably known all along. They'd probably encouraged it. They'd probably introduced them. The next day, Marcus told me he had to work late. "Big meeting with suppliers," he said, kissing my forehead. "Don't wait up." "Okay," I said sweetly. "I'll see you when you get home." The moment his car pulled out of the garage, I went into action. I grabbed my laptop and started digging. Lily Chen. Houston. Chinese. Connected to the Chen family business. It took me less than an hour to find her. Lily Chen, 28 years old, worked as an import coordinator at a shipping company that did business with Marcus's family. She was beautiful, I'll give her that. Long dark hair, perfect skin, elegant features. Her social media was mostly in Chinese, photos of luxury handbags, expensive dinners, trips to Los Angeles and New York. And buried in her photos, hidden among hundreds of others, were pictures of Marcus. Marcus at a restaurant I didn't recognize. Marcus on a hiking trail I'd never been to. Marcus in what looked like a hotel room. Casual, comfortable, intimate. The photos weren't tagged. They weren't obvious. But they were there. And now I knew. I knew who she was. I knew what she looked like. I knew she existed. And I knew I was going to destroy both of them. I called my best friend Rachel. Rachel had been my roommate in college, and she'd lived in Beijing with me during our study abroad year. She spoke Mandarin almost as well as I did. She was also a private investigator now, running her own firm in Dallas. I need your help, I told her. I think Marcus is cheating. I'll be there tomorrow, she said without hesitation. Rachel arrived the next day with equipment that looked like something out of a spy movie. Recording devices, GPS trackers, camera equipment, software for recovering deleted messages. We're going to get you everything you need, she said. Photos, videos, evidence that will hold up in court. By the time we're done, he won't be able to lie his way out of this. We started with his car. Rachel installed a GPS tracker while Marcus was at work. Within 2 days, we had his patterns mapped out. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, he would leave his office at 6 p.m. and drive to an apartment complex in Midtown. He'd park in the guest parking and disappear inside for 3 to 4 hours. Then he'd come home, smelling like shower gel, and tell me about his long day at the office. Tuesday and Thursday, he'd actually go to his office and work late. Saturdays and Sundays, he was with me or his family. But those 3 nights a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, he was with her. With Lily Chun, living a whole separate life while I sat at home like an idiot, believing his lies. Rachel did more digging. She found out that Lily Chun lived in that Midtown apartment complex. 3rd floor, corner unit. She found out that Marcus had been visiting her for at least 8 months. Maybe longer. 8 months of lies. 8 months of betrayal. 8 months of him looking me in the eye and telling me he loved me while he was sleeping with someone else. But Rachel found something even more interesting. She pulled the lease records for Lily's apartment. The co-signer on the lease was Daniel Chin, Marcus's father. His own father had co-signed the lease for his son's mistress. They knew. The whole family knew. They'd probably facilitated the entire thing. They probably encouraged Marcus to keep the white girl wife at home while he had his real relationship with the appropriate Chinese girl on the side. Elena, Rachel said, spreading the documents across my coffee table. This is bad. This is really bad. They've been planning this from the beginning. I think they want you gone. I know, I said. My voice was calm, cold. I've known for a while. I've heard them talk about it. In Mandarin. At Sunday dinners. They want me out of the picture so Marcus can marry Lily. Rachel looked at me with wide eyes. Wait. You speak Mandarin? You understand everything they've been saying. Every single word, I confirmed. For 2 years, I've sat at that table and listened to them insult me, mock me, plan against me. And I never said a word. I was gathering information, waiting for the right moment. Elena, Rachel said slowly, a smile spreading across her face. You have been playing the long game. You sneaky genius. I learned from the best, I said. You taught me that patience is a weapon. And now I'm ready to use it. We spent the next 3 weeks building an airtight case. Rachel followed Marcus and Lily, photographing them together at restaurants, shopping centers, walking hand in hand like a real couple. We recovered deleted text messages from Marcus's phone using software that pulled data from the cloud backup he didn't know was running. We had messages going back almost a year. Messages that were explicit, damning, undeniable. My parents think you should file for divorce, one message read. They say we can be together openly once the white girl is gone. They're working on it. Another message. I hate lying to her, but it's easier this way. She's so trusting. She'll never figure it out. And my personal favorite. Lily, you are my real partner. Elena is just the American wife for appearances. You know you're the one I truly love. Each message was a knife to the heart. But I didn't cry. I didn't break down. I channeled all that pain into cold, calculated fury. This man had never loved me. This family had never accepted me. And now I was going to make them all pay. Rachel also discovered something crucial. Marcus and his father had been moving money, large amounts of money, from the family business accounts into a separate LLC registered under Lily Chen's name. They were setting up a shell company, funneling assets, preparing to hide wealth before the divorce. They were going to leave me with nothing. They were going to claim the business was failing, that there was no money, that I was entitled to barely anything. And then Marcus would divorce me, marry Lily, and live happily ever after with the money they'd stolen. This is fraud, Rachel said. Financial fraud. We're not just talking about a divorce here. We're talking about criminal charges. Good, I said. I want them all to pay. Not just Marcus. His father, too. Everyone who knew. Everyone who helped. What about the mother and sister? Rachel asked. I thought about Mei Chen and Jennifer Chen. About the years of insults, the mockery, the cruelty disguised as concern. They knew, I said. They had to have known. They're complicit. We had one more piece to put in place. Evidence of the affair that was undeniable, that couldn't be explained away, that would destroy any sympathy Marcus might get in a divorce proceeding. We needed video of him and Lily together in a clearly romantic context. Rachel set up cameras in the parking garage of Lily's apartment building and near the entrance. On a Monday evening, we watched the footage live from my laptop. At 6:15 p.m., Marcus's car pulled into the garage. He parked, got out, and walked to the elevator. At 6:22 p.m., Lily Chen came down to meet him in the lobby. They kissed. Not a friendly peck. A deep, passionate kiss. She wrapped her arms around his neck. He pulled her close. They stood there for a full minute, completely absorbed in each other, oblivious to the cameras capturing every moment. Got it, Rachel said, downloading the footage. This is everything you need. I watched my husband kiss another woman on my laptop screen, and I felt nothing. No heartbreak, no tears, just cold satisfaction that finally, I had the proof I needed to destroy him. The next Sunday, I went to dinner at the Chen house like nothing was wrong. I sat at that table. I smiled. I complimented May's cooking. And I listened. They were celebrating. Marcus had told them I'd agreed to see a fertility specialist, that I'd admitted there might be something wrong with me, that I was finally accepting my inadequacy. She's so desperate for a baby, Jennifer said in Mandarin, laughing. It's pathetic. She doesn't realize Marcus has been getting a vasectomy reversed, so he can have children with Lily instead. My blood turned to ice. A vasectomy reversal. Marcus had gotten a vasectomy without telling me and was now getting it reversed for his mistress. That's why we couldn't conceive. It had nothing to do with me. He had made sure I couldn't get pregnant while he planned his future with someone else. When are they filing for divorce? May asked her son in Mandarin. Marcus shrugged, responding in the same language. Soon. A few more months. We need to make sure all the assets are protected first. Dad's almost done moving everything to the LLC. Then we can claim the business is struggling and Elena won't get much. Good, his mother said. The sooner that American woman is out of our lives, the better. Lily will give us proper Chinese grandchildren. They toasted. They actually toasted my impending divorce. Right there at the table, while I sat 3 feet away, smiling like I didn't understand a word. Marcus looked at me and translated. Mom says she hopes we can start a family soon. She's praying for us. That's so sweet, I said in English. Tell her thank you. I drove home that night knowing exactly what I had to do. Tomorrow I would strike. Tomorrow I would blow up their entire world. If this story is making your blood boil like mine was, make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. Trust me, the revenge gets so much better. Your support means everything to this channel. The next morning, I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer. I called Patricia Morrison, the most ruthless divorce attorney in Houston. She had a reputation for absolutely destroying cheating spouses in court. Her consultation fee alone was $1,000, but she was worth every penny. I walked into her office with 3 binders full of evidence. Photos, text messages, financial records, video footage, witness statements from Rachel, GPS tracking data, everything. Patricia went through it all, her expression getting sharper with each page she turned. When she finished, she looked up at me with something like admiration in her eyes. Mrs. Chun, she said, this is the most thoroughly documented case of adultery and financial fraud I've ever seen. How long did it take you to gather all this? 3 weeks of intensive investigation, I said. But I've been collecting information for 2 years. I speak Mandarin fluently. His family has been plotting against me since before the wedding, and I've understood every word. Patricia actually smiled. Oh, this is going to be good. This is going to be really good. Your husband and his father are going to jail for the financial fraud alone. The adultery just makes it easier to get you everything in the divorce. I want full restitution, I said. I want the money they tried to hide. I want the business assets. I want alimony. I want him to lose everything, the way he tried to make me lose everything. Done, Patricia said. When do you want to serve him? Tonight, I said. At his parents' house. At Sunday dinner. In front of his entire family. I want them all to see it happen. Patricia's smile widened. Oh, you are my favorite client ever. Let's make this dramatic. We planned it carefully. Patricia would arrive at the Chun house at 7 p.m. with the divorce papers and a police officer to serve them officially. I would make sure Marcus and his entire family were present, and I would drop the bombshell in a way they would never forget. That Sunday I dressed carefully. I wore a red dress, red for luck in Chinese culture, red for victory. I did my hair and makeup perfectly. I looked beautiful. I looked powerful. I looked like a woman who was about to win. We arrived at the Chin house at 6 p.m. as usual. Marcus's sister Jennifer was already there with her husband. His parents were in the kitchen preparing food. Marcus and I sat in the living room making small talk. At 6:45, I excused myself to use the bathroom. I texted Patricia, "We're all here. Come at 7. At 6:55, we sat down for dinner. Machen had made my least favorite dishes, probably on purpose. She served me first, smiling that fake sweet smile, and said in Mandarin, "Eat well. You'll need your strength when you're living alone soon." Marcus translated, "Mom says enjoy the meal." "It looks delicious," I said in English. "Thank you so much, May." The doorbell rang at exactly 7 p.m. Marcus frowned. "Are we expecting someone?" "I'll get it," I said, standing up before anyone else could move. I walked to the door, opened it, and there stood Patricia Morrison in a power suit, looking like vengeance incarnate, with a uniformed police officer behind her. "Elena Chun," Patricia said loudly. "Yes," I said. "Please come in." I led them into the dining room where Marcus's entire family was frozen, staring at the unexpected visitors. "Marcus Chun," Patricia said, looking directly at my husband. "Yes." Marcus stood up, confused. "What's going on?" "You've been served," Patricia said, handing him a thick envelope. "Divorce papers. You're also being notified that the Houston Police Department's Financial Crimes Unit will be contacting you and your father Daniel Chun regarding fraud and embezzlement charges related to your business activities." The room exploded. Marcus's face went white. His mother started shrieking in Mandarin. His father stood up so fast his chair fell over. Jennifer gasped. Marcus opened the envelope with shaking hands and pulled out the papers. His eyes scanned the first page, then the second, and then he looked at me with an expression of pure shock. "Elena," he said, "what is this? What's happening?" I smiled, and then for the first time in 2 years, I spoke in perfect, fluent Mandarin. "What's happening, Marcus, is that I'm divorcing you. I'm divorcing you for adultery with Lily Chun. I'm suing you and your father for financial fraud, and I'm taking everything." The silence that followed was absolute. You could have heard a pin drop. Mei Chen's mouth hung open. Daniel Chin looked like he'd seen a ghost. Jennifer's eyes were huge. And Marcus, my lying, cheating, fraud-committing husband, stood there holding the divorce papers, unable to speak. "You speak Chinese," his mother finally whispered in Mandarin. "I speak Mandarin." I corrected her in the same language. "I've spoken it fluently for over 10 years. I studied it in college. I lived in Beijing for 3 years. I understood every single insult, every cruel comment, every plot you've made against me since the day we met." "That's impossible," May said, still in Mandarin, her voice shaking. "You never said anything. You never responded." "Because I was smart," I said, switching back to English so the police officer could understand. "I was gathering evidence. I was waiting for you all to reveal your true natures. And you did. You told me everything I needed to know. You planned everything right in front of me because you thought I was too stupid, too American, too inferior to understand. But I understood everything. I turned to Marcus. I know about Lily Chen. I have photos, videos, text messages, everything. I know you've been seeing her for almost a year. I know your family helped you, encouraged you, paid for her apartment. I know about your vasectomy and your plan to reverse it for her. I know about the shell company, the hidden money, the plan to leave me with nothing. Marcus tried to speak, but Patricia cut him off. Don't say anything without your lawyer present. Though I should warn you, based on the evidence Mrs. Chen has provided, you're going to need a very good criminal defense attorney, not just a divorce lawyer. Daniel Chen found his voice, speaking in English for the benefit of the police officer. This is ridiculous. You can't prove any of this. Actually, I said, pulling out my phone, I can prove all of it. Would you like to see the video of Marcus and Lily Chen kissing in her apartment lobby 3 days ago? Or maybe you'd prefer to see the bank records showing the fraudulent transfers from Chen Imports to Lily Chen's LLC. Or maybe you'd like to hear the recording I made at this very table last week, where you all discussed your plan to divorce me and hide the assets. I pressed play on my phone. My voice filled the room in perfect Mandarin, crystal clear audio. The sooner that American woman is out of our lives, the better. Lily will give us proper Chinese grandchildren. It was May's voice. Undeniable. Recorded. Evidence. Mei Chen's face crumbled. She started crying, genuine tears of shock and fear. You recorded us, she said in English. You recorded private family conversations. I recorded criminal conspiracies, I corrected. And you might want to know that in Texas, one-party consent for recording is legal. I was present at every conversation I recorded, which means I broke no laws. You, however, broke many. Patricia stepped forward. Mr. Daniel Chen, you're also being served with notice of the fraud investigation. I recommend you contact your attorney immediately. The police will be in touch regarding the embezzlement charges. Mrs. Chen, you should know that due to the severity of the fraud and the deliberate attempt to hide marital assets, we're seeking not just an equal division of property, but punitive damages. You're going to give my client everything you tried to steal from her, plus penalties, plus my fees, plus her pain and suffering. How much? Marcus asked, his voice barely a whisper. We're starting at $2.5 million, Patricia said calmly. That includes the value of your share of the business, the hidden assets, the fraudulent transfers, the marital home equity, your vehicles, your retirement accounts, everything. Plus, Mrs. Chen is entitled to spousal support given that she supported your lifestyle during the marriage. I don't have $2.5 million, Marcus said. You will when we liquidate your family's business assets, Patricia replied. The court will seize what you tried to hide. Every penny you transferred to Lily Chen's LLC is traceable and recoverable. You thought you were being clever. You were just making my job easier. Jennifer found her voice. Elena, please. This is insane. We're family. I looked at her, this woman who had pretended to be my friend while undermining me at every turn. No, I said coldly. We were never family. You made that very clear. You called me the white girl. You called me worthless. You said I didn't deserve Marcus. Well, you were right about one thing. I didn't deserve Marcus. I deserve much better. And now I'm going to get it. I turned to Marcus one last time. I want you out of our condo by tomorrow morning. Patricia has already filed for an emergency restraining order. If you try to contact me, if you try to come near me, if you try to intimidate me in any way, you'll be arrested. The locks will be changed tomorrow. Your belongings will be packed and shipped to your mother's house. We're done. Elena, he said, and his voice cracked. Please, we can fix this. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. Please don't do this. You made a mistake. I repeated. You had an affair for almost a year. You had a vasectomy without telling me. You let your family abuse me for 2 years. You stole marital assets. You planned to divorce me and leave me with nothing. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. You chose to betray me. And now I'm choosing to destroy you. I walked to the door, Patricia and the police officer following me. I turned back one last time to look at the Chen family, all of them sitting there in shock, their perfect plan in ruins, their secrets exposed, their future uncertain. Oh, I said in Mandarin, one final twist of the knife. One more thing. I'll be providing all the evidence, including the recordings of your family conversations, to the immigration authorities. Because I'm fairly certain that some of your business practices, especially the ones you discussed so freely in front of me, violate import regulations and possibly customs laws. You thought I was too stupid to understand. You were wrong. Zaijian. Goodbye. I walked out of that house with my head held high, got into Patricia's car and drove away. Behind me, I heard shouting, crying, the sound of the Chin family falling apart, and I felt nothing but cold satisfaction. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Marcus tried everything. He sent me hundreds of messages, begging for forgiveness. He called from different numbers when I blocked him. He sent his mother to my office, crying and pleading. He even got Lily Chin to send me a message saying it was all her fault, that Marcus really loved me, that she would disappear if I would just forgive him. I ignored everything. Patricia handled all communication. Marcus's attorney tried to negotiate a settlement, but Patricia laughed in his face. Your client committed fraud and adultery, and he's facing criminal charges. We're not negotiating. We're taking everything. The Financial Crimes Unit moved quickly. They raided Chin imports, seized records, froze accounts. They arrested Daniel Chin at his office and charged him with embezzlement, fraud, and money laundering. Marcus was charged as an accessory. The business licenses were suspended. The company collapsed within a month. Everything the Chin family had built over 30 years gone. Destroyed by their own greed and arrogance. Lily Chin, to her credit, cooperated with the investigation. She turned over all her financial records, showed how Daniel Chin had set up the LLC in her name, explained how Marcus had told her I was a bad wife who didn't understand him. She wasn't charged with any crimes. She was just another woman who'd been lied to, another victim of Marcus's manipulation. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Patricia went for blood in every hearing. She presented the affair evidence, the financial fraud, the recordings of the family plotting against me, everything. Marcus's attorney had no defense. The judge was furious. Mr. Chin, the judge said during our final hearing, I've been on the bench for 20 years, and I have never seen such a calculated, callous betrayal of a spouse. You didn't just cheat on your wife. You and your family engaged in a conspiracy to defraud her, humiliate her, and leave her destitute. The fact that she was smart enough to document everything is to her credit and to your eternal shame. The final settlement was even better than I'd hoped. I got the condo fully paid off. I got Marcus's retirement accounts, all of them. I got half the remaining value of the family business, which wasn't much after the government seizures, but it was something. I got 3 years of alimony at $5,000 per month. And I got a cash settlement of $400,000 for pain and suffering, punitive damages, and attorney's fees. The total package was worth about $1.8 million. Marcus was left with nothing. His father was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison for financial fraud. Marcus got 2 years probation and a massive fine he couldn't pay. Mei Chun and Jennifer Chin weren't charged with crimes, but they lost everything. The house in Sugar Land went into foreclosure. The family business was defunct. Their reputation in the Houston Chinese community was destroyed. No one wanted to associate with the family who'd committed fraud and broken up over an affair. Marcus ended up moving into a studio apartment in a rough part of town, working as a warehouse supervisor for minimum wage, the only job he could get with a fraud charge on his record. Lily Chin broke up with him immediately after the truth came out. She wanted nothing to do with a broke, disgraced, criminal ex-husband. Last I heard, she moved to Los Angeles and started over. Good for her. As for me, I took my settlement money and invested it wisely. I got promoted at work because I didn't have to spend every Sunday pretending to be someone I wasn't. I started traveling, using my Mandarin skills to take business trips to China where I was actually appreciated. And 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I met someone new. His name is David. He's an engineer, white American from Michigan. His family welcomed me immediately. His mother hugs me. His father asks about my career. His siblings treat me like a person, not like an obstacle. There are no secret languages, no hidden insults, no plots. Just honest, genuine acceptance. David knows the whole story. I told him everything on our third date because I wanted no secrets, no lies, nothing hidden. He listened, and when I finished, he said, "You're the strongest person I've ever met. And I'm so sorry you had to go through that. But I'm glad you're here now. We've been dating for 4 months. It's still early, but it feels right. It feels healthy. It feels like what a relationship should be." Last week, I ran into Jennifer Chen at the grocery store. She saw me and froze. I smiled at her and said in perfect Mandarin, "Hello, Jennifer. How's your family doing?" She turned pale and walked away without saying a word. I bought a bottle of expensive champagne and went home to celebrate. Sometimes I think about what would have happened if I'd never learned Mandarin, if I'd never understood what they were saying, if I'd been the ignorant white girl they thought I was. They would have destroyed me. They would have taken everything and left me broken. But I wasn't ignorant. I was patient. I was smart. I waited for the right moment, and when it came, I struck without mercy. And I don't regret a single second of it. People ask me sometimes if I feel bad about what happened to Marcus's family, about his father going to prison, about the business collapsing, about all of them losing everything. The answer is no. I feel nothing. They planned to do the same to me. They called me worthless, stupid, inferior. They mocked me, used me, and plotted my downfall. They got exactly what they deserved. Not 1 ounce more, not 1 ounce less. Marcus tried to contact me one more time, about 3 months ago. He sent me a long email through a burner account Patricia hadn't blocked yet. He said he was sorry, that he'd made terrible mistakes, that he hoped someday I could forgive him. He said his life had fallen apart, that his family blamed him for everything, that Lily had left him, that he had nothing. He said I was the best thing that ever happened to him, and he'd thrown it all away. I read the email once. Then I deleted it and blocked the address. Because here's the truth. I don't care about Marcus Chin anymore. I don't care if he's sorry. I don't care if he's suffering. I don't care if he learned his lesson. He's not my problem anymore. He's not my husband, not my concern, not my responsibility. He's just a man who made very bad choices and faced the consequences. That's between him and his karma. As for Mei Chen, I heard through mutual acquaintances that she had to get a job for the first time in her life. She's working as a cashier at a Chinese grocery store, living in a small apartment, her perfect life in ruins. A part of me, a very small part, almost feels bad for her. She's an old woman who lost everything. But then I remember her face when she called me worthless, her laugh when she mocked my inability to have children, her voice when she plotted to push me out. And that small part of sympathy dies immediately. The lesson in all of this, the thing I want you to understand if you take nothing else from my story, is this. Never underestimate people. Never assume that someone doesn't understand, doesn't know, doesn't see what you're doing. The quiet person at the table might speak your language. The trusting spouse might be documenting every lie. The victim you're creating might be planning your destruction. And if you're the victim, if you're the person being betrayed, listen to your gut. Gather evidence. Be patient. Be smart. Don't let them see you coming. And when the moment is right, strike with everything you have. Burn their world down and build yourself something better from the ashes. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story gave you the justice you needed to see, check out the other videos on screen. They're just as satisfying. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? See you in the next story. My name is Elena Torres. I'm 31 years old. I speak 4 languages, including fluent Mandarin. I'm single, successful, and free. And I've never been happier in my entire life. When the masks fall, we finally see people as they really are. And when we see them, we make our choices. I chose freedom. I chose justice. I chose myself. And I would do it all again in a heartbeat. But the story doesn't quite end there. Because 3 months after everything settled, after the divorce was finalized, after Marcus's father started his prison sentence, I got a phone call that changed everything one more time. It was from a woman named Susan Wang. She introduced herself as an attorney representing the Chun family's business insurance company. "Mrs. Torres," she said, using my maiden name which I'd legally reclaimed. "I need to speak with you about something urgent regarding your ex-husband's family. Can we meet?" We met at a coffee shop downtown the next day. Susan was a sharp woman in her 50s, all business. She pulled out a folder and slid it across the table to me. "What I'm about to tell you is highly confidential," she said. "But given what happened to you, I think you have a right to know. And frankly, we might need your testimony. I opened the folder. Inside were financial documents, transaction records, shipping manifests. What am I looking at? I asked. Evidence of a much larger fraud than what your ex-husband was charged with, Susan said. The Chin family business wasn't just importing textiles and electronics from China. They were smuggling counterfeit luxury goods, designer handbags, watches, jewelry. Millions of dollars worth over the past decade. My stomach dropped. Are you serious? Completely. The federal investigation into the business fraud you helped expose. It opened up a much bigger can of worms. Customs agents found discrepancies in import records going back years. They started digging deeper and discovered a sophisticated smuggling operation. Daniel Chin wasn't just embezzling from his own business. He was running an international counterfeiting ring. I sat back in my chair, trying to process this information. How does this involve me? Your recordings, Susan said. The ones you made at family dinners. You mentioned you recorded conversations in Mandarin. We need those recordings. The FBI believes there may be discussions about the smuggling operation on them. Conversations Daniel Chen had with his wife, his son, maybe even with suppliers calling from China. I thought back to all those Sunday dinners, all those conversations I'd recorded on my phone. I had been so focused on documenting their insults toward me, their affair planning, their fraud discussions. But there had been other conversations, too. Business calls that Daniel took at the table. Discussions about shipments and containers and customs declarations. At the time, I hadn't paid much attention because I was focused on Marcus's betrayal. But now, looking back, there had been a lot of business talk. A lot of specific details about imports and exports. I need to consult with my attorney, I said. Patricia Morrison. She represented me in the divorce. I know Patricia, Susan said. She's excellent. Have her call me. But Elena, if you help us with this investigation, if your recordings contain evidence of a smuggling operation, you could be entitled to a reward. The federal government has a whistleblower program for customs violations. We're talking potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. I met with Patricia the next day. She reviewed the information Susan had provided, and then looked at me with that sharp smile I'd come to recognize. Elena, you gorgeous genius. You accidentally recorded evidence of a federal smuggling operation while you were documenting your husband's affair. Do you realize how incredible this is? I was just trying to protect myself in the divorce, I said. You protected yourself and potentially helped take down an international criminal organization, Patricia corrected. Let me handle the negotiations with the FBI and the insurance company. But yes, you should absolutely cooperate. Not just for the money, although that will be substantial, but because it's the right thing to do. Over the next month, I worked with federal agents, providing them with every recording I had made. They had translators go through hours of audio, pulling out conversations about shipments, about customs paperwork, about bribes paid to port officials. The evidence was damning. Machen knew everything. She'd been involved in the smuggling operation from the beginning, handling paperwork and communications with Chinese suppliers. Jennifer Chen had been involved too, using her accounting degree to manage the financial side of the operation. Even Marcus had participated, though in a more limited capacity. He'd made trips to China specifically to coordinate with the counterfeit manufacturers. The FBI built a massive case, not just against Daniel Chen, but against the entire family and several business associates in both Houston and China. The indictments came down like a hammer. Daniel Chen's charges were upgraded to include organized crime, conspiracy, smuggling, and trademark infringement. His sentence was increased from 4 years to 15 years in federal prison. Machen was charged as a co-conspirator. At 62 years old, she was looking at 10 years in prison. She pleaded guilty and got 8 years with the possibility of early release for cooperation. Jennifer Chen was charged with money laundering and fraud. She got 5 years probation and a massive fine that bankrupted her. Her husband divorced her within months. Marcus's charges were also upgraded. Because he participated in the smuggling operation, even minimally, his probation was revoked and he was sentenced to 3 years in federal prison. The man who betrayed me, who'd lied to me, who tried to steal from me, was going to spend 3 years locked away. And I felt absolutely nothing. No satisfaction. No vindication. Just a cold sense that justice had been served. The federal government seized everything the Chin family owned. The house in Sugarland was sold at auction. May's jewelry, her art collection, her designer clothes, all sold to pay restitution to the trademark holders whose goods they'd counterfeited. Even the family grave plots were seized and sold. The Chen family name, which had been respected in Houston's Chinese community for 3 decades, was completely destroyed. They would be remembered as criminals, frauds, smugglers. Nothing more. And me, I got a whistleblower reward of $285,000 for providing evidence that led to the successful prosecution of a major smuggling operation. Combined with my divorce settlement, I had over $2 million. At 31 years old, I was financially independent for the rest of my life if I was smart about it. And I was very smart about it. I invested most of the money in index funds and real estate. I bought a second condo in Austin as a rental property. I set up a trust for my future children whenever I decided to have them. And I donated $50,000 to a nonprofit that helped immigrant women escaping abusive marriages. Women who, like me, had been isolated and targeted because of their race or culture. Women who needed someone to tell them they were worth fighting for. David proposed to me 8 months after we started dating. It was nothing like Marcus's proposal. There was no grand gesture, no fancy restaurant, no audience. We were hiking in Big Bend National Park, standing on a cliff overlooking the Rio Grande, and he just turned to me and said, "Elena, I love you. I love your strength and your intelligence and your absolute refusal to let anyone diminish you. Will you marry me?" I said yes, not because I needed a husband, not because I needed financial security or social status or family acceptance, but because I wanted to, because he was kind, because he respected me, because when I spoke, he listened, because he thought my Mandarin skills were impressive, not threatening, because his family treated me like a human being. I said yes because I chose him, freely and without fear. We got married 6 months later in a small ceremony in my hometown in Iowa. My parents were there, crying happy tears. David's family was there, welcoming me with open arms. Rachel was my maid of honor. Patricia Morrison even attended, telling me it was the happiest ending to any case she'd ever handled. There were no cultural negotiations. No one spoke in languages to exclude others. No one insulted anyone. It was just 2 families coming together to celebrate love. Real love. Honest love. On my wedding night, David and I sat on the balcony of our hotel room, looking out at the stars. "Can I ask you something?" he said. "Anything," I replied. "Do you ever think about Marcus? About what he's going through in prison?" I considered the question. Did I think about Marcus Chin? Did I wonder if he was suffering? Did I care about his regrets? No, I said honestly, I don't think about him at all. He's not my husband. He's not my problem. He's just a man who made terrible choices and faced the consequences. I hope he learns from it. I hope he becomes a better person. But I don't need to know. I don't need closure from him. I don't need an apology. I have everything I need right here. David kissed my forehead. You're extraordinary. You know that, right? What you survived, what you accomplished, the way you protected yourself. You're the strongest person I've ever met. I'm not strong because I survived, I said. I'm strong because I refused to accept what they said about me. They called me worthless, stupid, inferior. And I knew, deep in my soul, that they were wrong. That's what saved me. Not the recordings. Not the evidence. Not even the revenge. What saved me was knowing my own worth. A year after our wedding, David and I found out I was pregnant. I was terrified at first. Terrified because of everything Marcus had done, the vasectomy lies, the fertility manipulation. Terrified that somehow his cruelty had broken something in me. But my doctor assured me I was perfectly healthy. You're going to have a beautiful, healthy baby, she said. And Mrs. Torres, I've seen your history. I've seen what your ex-husband did. I just want you to know that none of that was your fault. You deserve his happiness. I cried in that doctor's office. Happy tears. Healing tears. I was going to be a mother. I was going to have a child with a man who loved me, respected me, chose me every single day. A child who would grow up seeing healthy love, hearing multiple languages spoken with respect, learning that family means support and honesty, not manipulation and cruelty. Our daughter was born on a sunny day in May. We named her Grace Elizabeth Torres. Grace for the second chance I'd been given. Elizabeth after David's grandmother who had welcomed me so warmly. She had my dark hair and David's blue eyes. She was perfect. When I held her for the first time, I made her a promise. I promised her that she would never question her worth, that she would never have to hide her intelligence or her talents, that she would grow up knowing that love should lift you up, not tear you down, that if anyone ever tried to make her feel small, she would have the strength to walk away. 6 months after Grace was born, I got one final letter from Marcus Chun. It was forwarded through Patricia's office. He was writing from federal prison in Louisiana. The letter was long, handwritten, full of apologies and regrets. He said he'd had a lot of time to think about what he'd done. He said he'd been wrong about everything. He said he'd been a coward who let his family control him. He said he'd loved me but had been too weak to defend me. He said he hoped someday I could forgive him. At the end of the letter, he asked if I would consider letting him meet our child. I heard through the community that you had a baby, he wrote. I know I have no right to ask this. I know I destroyed our marriage and betrayed your trust. But if you ever had my child, I would want to be part of their life. I would want to be a better father than I was a husband. I read the letter once. Then I read it to David. Then we both read it to Patricia over the phone. He thinks Grace might be his. I said, laughing at the absurdity. He thinks I was pregnant when we divorced, and I hid it from him. Patricia laughed too. That man is delusional. Grace is clearly David's child. The timeline doesn't even work. You've been divorced for 2 years. Does he think you hid a pregnancy for 18 months? Do I need to respond? I asked. Legally? No, Patricia said. Morally? Also no. He has no claim to your child. He has no right to contact you. If he persists, we can get a restraining order. But my advice, don't respond at all. Let him wonder. Let him sit in that prison cell and think about everything he lost. So I didn't respond. I put the letter in a file with all the other documents from that chapter of my life. The divorce papers, the evidence folders, the court transcripts. Someday, maybe when Grace is older, I'll show her that file. I'll tell her the story of how her mother survived betrayal and came out stronger. I'll teach her that people will try to diminish you, try to make you doubt yourself, try to take what's yours. And I'll teach her how to fight back with intelligence, patience, and absolute conviction in her own worth. Last month, Rachel called me with news. You're never going to believe this, she said. Lily Chin got married. Good for her, I said, genuinely meaning it. Yeah, but listen to who she married. A federal prosecutor. One of the guys who worked on the Chun family smuggling case. I burst out laughing. You're kidding. I'm not. His name is James Rodriguez. They met during the investigation when he was interviewing her as a witness. Apparently, he was impressed by how cooperative she was, how she turned over all her evidence voluntarily. They started dating after the case closed. They just got married in a small ceremony in LA. That's actually kind of perfect, I said. She was a victim too. She deserves happiness. You're very mature about this, Rachel said. Not everyone would be so generous toward their husband's mistress. She wasn't my enemy, I said. She was just another woman who got lied to by Marcus Chun. I hope she's happy. I hope she has a good life. I hope she never has to deal with anyone like the Chun family ever again. Because that's the truth I've learned through all of this. Revenge isn't about destroying people for the sake of destruction. It's about justice. It's about holding people accountable for their choices. Marcus and his family didn't suffer because I was cruel. They suffered because they were criminals. They committed fraud. They committed smuggling. They conspired to steal from me and humiliate me. I just made sure they faced the consequences of their own actions. Today, I'm 33 years old. I have a beautiful daughter, a loving husband, a successful career, and financial security I built from the ashes of my first marriage. I speak 4 languages, fluently. I travel internationally for work. I volunteer with immigrant women's organizations. I invest in real estate. I'm writing a book about my experience, about how cultural differences can be weaponized in relationships, about how to recognize abuse hidden behind smiles and translations. Marcus Chun has 2 more years left on his prison sentence. His father has 13 years. His mother is in a women's federal prison in West Virginia, serving her 8-year sentence. Jennifer lost her accounting license and works at a call center. The Chin family legacy is destroyed, and I feel nothing but satisfaction that justice was served. Sometimes people ask me if I regret marrying Marcus in the first place. If I wish I'd never met him, never gone through all that pain. And my answer is always no. I don't regret it, because that experience taught me things I never would have learned otherwise. It taught me my own strength. It taught me to trust my instincts. It taught me the value of documentation and patience. It taught me that love should never require you to diminish yourself. And it led me, eventually, to the life I have now. A life I built on my own terms. If you're watching this, and you're in a situation like I was, if you're being mistreated by your partner's family, if you're being lied to, if you feel like something is wrong but you can't prove it, listen to me. Trust yourself. Document everything. Be patient. Gather your evidence. Build your case. And when the time is right, strike with everything you have. You are not crazy. You are not too sensitive. You are not overreacting. You are surviving. And you can do more than survive. You can win. Thank you for watching until the end. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for all your support and comments. If this story helped you in any way, if it gave you hope or strength, or just the satisfaction of seeing justice served, then sharing it was worth it. Check out my other videos for more stories like this. Subscribe if you haven't already. And remember, when people show you who they really are, believe them. And then act accordingly. My name is Elena Torres. I'm a mother, a wife, a professional, a survivor, and a warrior. I speak 4 languages, including fluent Mandarin. And I've never been happier in my entire life. The Chin family thought they could break me because I was white, because I was American, because I was an outsider. They thought I was too stupid to understand their insults, too weak to fight back, too trusting to see through their lies. They were wrong about everything. I understood every word. I was strong enough to plan my revenge. And I was smart enough to take everything they tried to steal from me. When the masks fall, we see people as they really are. And when we see them clearly, we make our choices. I chose myself. I chose justice. I chose freedom. And I would do it all again in a heartbeat. Zaijin. Goodbye forever.